This podcast is brought to you by RPM Studios, located at 1027 Camels Run Road in Carnegie, Pennsylvania. RPM Studios offers a full line of digital media production services, such as podcasting, live streaming, video production, post-production, multi-track recording, digital graphics. For more information, please check out our Facebook page at www.facebook.com/RPM Studios. Now on with the show.
Welcome to RPM Studios. Recently I wrote that to all things, relationships are created to feed the soul. In this RPM faith-based podcast series, we're going to interview religious leaders from all different types of religions and other people that have found their religion and faith has brought them to find their path in life. I hope you enjoy this series. I'd like to welcome you to our new podcast show, Relationships. This is John Merola, an ordained minister from Newcastle, Pennsylvania. He is the director of Empower School of Ministry. John, welcome.
Thank you, Ron.
How are you today?
Great, thanks.
Fantastic. John, you and I have had a number of conversations now, and I'm excited about today because of the conversations we get into. Tell us a little bit about the Empower School of Ministry, please.
Sure. Well, I'm a member at New Brighton Christian Assembly, which is about half hour or so north of Pittsburgh. And so about 5 years ago, our pastor mentioned in a meeting that he had a vision to start a school of ministry to raise up ministry leaders. And so I had been feeling in my heart a call or a pull to get involved in that same type of thing, to train leaders. And actually, at the time, I was going back to school, getting my master's in organizational leadership. And I've often been a student of leadership, just doing reading and study on leadership. So I really felt drawn to want to be part of this. So I talked to him afterward, and so we started to have lunch and just meet and just kind of talk about what this could look like. And so at the end of my program, about a year later from this point, I graduated, and then I was hired by the church part-time to launch this school. And so just through a lot of prayer and just finding some old notes and old things that I had gathered over the years, I was able to get this school started, get the curriculum going, and we started to advertise and to market, and we launched with 8 students in 2016. And so now here we are, we're in our 3rd year, and we're not a huge school, but we just love the fact that we're out there helping people find their calling and to discern what those next steps might be in order to live out that calling. And we just feel a responsibility, I guess, at this time in our lives, to be able to mentor and to raise up the emerging generation of future ministry leaders.
I love the word mentor. As a young man, I was fortunate. My father used to always encourage me to have mentors that were people I could go to. And of course, Bill Smith was a guy I worked with and grew up with and taught me how to read the stock market, newspaper signs and all that. And lo and behold, one of my mentors became an important factor because I ended up working on Wall Street. Who would ever think? Wow. But why do you think mentorship is so important? Because, it seems like a lot of young people don't understand that. And as a lot of communication is seemingly lost. And I think mentorship can really help that build relationships in that way.
Right. And we were talking about this earlier, too. I do believe that God works through knowing people. And there's this saying that we've all heard for years, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And there's maybe like a negative feel to that. But I think that can be a positive thing, too. And I think that God does work through the people that we relate with. I mean, obviously, God is relatable. He's always going to invite us to know him. But I think that whenever God wants to accomplish something, He's going to bring people into your life. He's also going to put you into the path of other people to accomplish His purposes. And so, while we do live in a digital age and a information age when there's so much stuff available out there that you could just always Google search something or just pull up something on the internet, I think there's some things that are just some old-fashioned things that you just can't duplicate, that you just can't substitute. And so that's that one-on-one, that face-to-face encounter. And so that was actually why when we were starting the school, we had looked at maybe doing some online instruction. And so while there's a place for that, and I think it's valuable in some settings, we didn't really want to be that identity of an online program. We really wanted to have the classroom face-to-face instruction, because I think there's some things that are better caught than just taught. And
I like that. I do.
Yeah, and so I think that there's just that need for us to see things modeled in front of us, and to see and to hear from other people who have been down that road. And so, while it's nice to have the opportunity to find things at your fingertips and just pull up information, the danger is that we feel like we don't need other people, because we can just always go to the internet and find whatever we need. And so I think that that's a false thing in our current generation, where maybe people are, they're trained that like that's their go-to, that's their default, is just to do an internet search. And I do it all the time too. So I'm not saying it's not a valuable tool. It certainly is. But that's not to replace the one-on-one interaction. That's not to take the place of the people that God puts into our paths to, like you said, mentor us and to pass on the wisdom and to model things for us and to just pick up certain things that we need and to speak into our lives and to just walk alongside of us as we move down that path that God has for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, relationships are just that. They are sacred ground for us to actually find out who we are through relationships. And when we embrace a relationship of any type, it is really your opportunity to find who you want to be there, or who you're going to be. And the mentorship in that type of relationship is so important, because, as you know, when you teach somebody, you end up learning more about it than the person maybe that you're helping learn.
Absolutely.
So I see that as a real plus in the Empower School of Ministry. When you guys started, how did you draw up the curriculum of how you were going to teach and what you were going to do?
Well, we had some meetings and we just talked about what we wanted the school to look like, what courses we wanted to teach. Obviously, there's many things that you could go into, and so you can't take time for everything. But we had to sort of narrow it down to what we thought were going to be the more important aspects. But so what we really wanted to center on was helping people. It was to help people discover their call, mm-hmm. to get comfortable with knowing God's voice in their life, not only for this season when they're trying to figure that out, but for their entire life. And then also just to own that call, to really embrace it and to really commit to what that call is all about, because it's a lifetime call. It's not just a profession. It's not just a career. It's not just a call just to have a job in ministry or in the marketplace, but it's something that you need to embrace completely. And so we just encourage people to learn what that call is and to own that call and to really commit to it completely, and then to live out that call, because having that call but living that call are two different things. And so I believe that all of us are called, that God has and whenever I say call, I mean that there's a purpose, there's a plan for us. We're not just here just randomly roaming the earth just to find something to do or to just
and so
pay
many
the
people
bills.
Find success in their job or in their, yet they're making more money than ever and they're still profoundly unhappy. So
absolutely,
but let's talk about what you were saying there a little bit, because finding how to tune into those whispers that God's sending us, and to talk about finding your dreams and where you're meant to be in the journey you're on. how do you guys draw that out? I mean, talk about a little bit about that. I mean, because, it takes a long time. At least for me, it was a long time to start to really listen internally to where I'm supposed to be going. They used to call me the bulldog. I would just force my way into places because I thought I could. And, we've talked about this too. You're taught that you could do anything you want as long as you believe in what you're going to do. Well, I think that's great. We'll talk a little bit about that later. But how did you guys come to the curriculum to help people start identifying those whispers or those dreams inside them that God sets forth?
Right. Well, I'm thinking of two things. Basically, the first thing is that we live in a very noisy world, and just a lot of competition, if you will. Just a lot of things that are going to compete for your time, for your attention. And so we just try to encourage our people to turn down the volume, if you will, of the world and just the noise and all the busyness of life, because I believe that God is always reaching out, that He's always speaking to us in certain ways. But if the volume of our life is just too loud, then it's going to get drowned out. So we like to get people to...
And don't we kind of see that going on? I mean, you see these kids going from school to soccer practice to, piano lessons to, and with the advent of what you're saying, the cell phones and the videos and all that, we're completely embraced in like this non-quiet world anymore. I mean, you go to the library and it's just amazing. It's actually people talking. It used to be a quiet place. In my life, I go to adoration on Tuesday mornings. I started it as a prayer factor, and it's changed my life. And so I'm really in tune with what you're saying and embracing that quiet time, that ability to take prayer and really understand what prayer is about, because prayer is nothing but a conversation with God. And also, isn't it more of a tooth sharpening, so to speak, in learning to hear those whispers inside your heart?
Right. It's, just like just even in just a very natural example. I mean, we met, and so, as you get to know people better and better, you just get to know their voice. And so if it's someone that you just met,
I love that
and
analogy,
then you get a phone call from now we have, a caller ID, so you would know who's calling. But, say that you didn't, excuse me. And so you hear that voice, and so maybe you're not really sure who it is. But then after you get to know someone, then when you hear the voice, you know who it is, because now you've grown comfortable and you understand who that person, because our voice is very much a part of our identity. I was just telling someone that the other day, there's like almost 8 billion people on the planet, but every single one of them has their own unique, distinct voice. It's like almost like your fingerprint. And so, God's voice, I think, is also distinct and unique. And so we have to become comfortable with that. And so, like I said earlier, one way is that we get people to get more comfortable with being quiet and to, find some way to make some time in their day, make some time in their life to be more intentional, to listen and to be quiet. And then secondly, we like to get people to realize that God is always speaking to us through His Word. Obviously, we're a ministry school, so we teach the Bible. And so, there's a lot of different views on what the Bible is, but we hold that the Bible is a divinely inspired book. It means that God is the one who authored it through human vessels. But so really, when you're reading that book, it's more than just ink on a page. It's really God speaking to you. And so we try to get people to really appreciate that and to learn some good habits of study and some good habits that will help you to just draw out the meaning and to draw out the voice of God that are in those pages of your Bible that you could do anytime, anywhere.
That's interesting. And really seeing someone focus on that, because obviously studying, people are so accustomed to reading a book, studying it, and getting a test. But studying your inner core of your beliefs, the things that are resonating in your heart and soul, that's a deep subject to be able to teach someone. I mean, so what do you do?
Well, I think one thing that we really try to do too is that we don't give any tests in our courses. we really feel that a better measure of learning is to have them write what we call reflection papers. And so this is what you're talking about. So that will force them into a time when they have to reflect on what they're learning and how to integrate that learning into their everyday lives. So, it's not bad to have a test where you're going to answer A, B, C, or D, or true or false, or whatever. But we really felt better about just having people write papers. And we're not trying to be overly academic, but it's more for the purpose of giving them the opportunity on a regular basis to reflect and to think, okay, here's where I was when I came into this class. Here's where I am now. Here are the things that I've learned, and here are the ways that I plan to put it into practice in my life. So it's just a good practice for them to know how to sort their thoughts and to interpret those thoughts and to put them into their own words. And so I think that's a big part of our program, is to get people to learn how to reflect and to articulate those thoughts back to other people.
It's interesting you bring that up, because I actually did do that this morning for this podcast. I wrote some basic thoughts on relationships and how sacred they are, and most people see relationships not as a opportunity. I did some reading on the 5 or 8 most reasons why people get married. I want to share these with you and tell me what you think here. What you're saying is entering into relationships purposely and purposefully. And so what you're doing is bringing people into God to start to listen to God purposefully and creating that idea. But I was amazed that most people get involved in a marriage or a major relationship for reasons such as to end loneliness, to fill a gap in their life, to bring themselves love, or someone, or to bring love to somebody, and depression, which I thought was just amazing. Well, at least they're not doing drugs, right? Improve their sex life was a big one. Recover from a past relationship or relieve boredom. I mean, I don't know how successful that marriage might be if you told your wife, I'm glad we got married because I got rid of all that boredom.
I was bored, yes. No, I think that it does sort of, teach a truth that we see in the Bible. Just very early on, we see, when we read about God made the garden, he put Adam and Eve in there. And it says that, well, God said, it's not good for man to be alone, and he made Eve, who was going to be his partner. And so I think, certainly that applies to the marriage, but I think it also applies just to life in general. It's not good for us to be alone, to be on our own. We need to have friends. We need to have a circle of influence. We need to be part of a circle where we're giving and we're also receiving. And so I think that's how we grow. And that's why when we're born, we're put into a family. And so when you're in a family, that's where you thrive. When you're not in a healthy family, then you don't. And so I think we need others around us, not only for what they're able to input into us, yes, but also for us to have an opportunity to input into them. And so when we're able to walk that out, then we're able to really enjoy life and to grow and to reach our full potential.
When you purposefully start allowing people to see relationships as more of an opportunity, not to relieve boredom or have a better sex life or to, bring love, because I think we're so bombarded all the time with those kind of things and what we're trying to do. In your class or in your study, how do you bring out that opportunity? I mean, that school itself is an opportunity. I mean, I would love to experience something like that. I think it's an amazing thing you're doing. And because it took me all these years to get to where I'm going, and I would have loved to have been able to spend that kind of quality time like Jules Granati over here, our engineer. I don't know if you can see him on camera or not, but at his age, hanging out with you. By the way, that's how we met with Jules Granati. So thank you for that, Jules. Jules is our engineer. And so anyway, the idea, quite frankly, is to see these young kids or young people. I call them kids. I guess that's not right anymore, but to see that opportunity to be able to offer that fertile ground of growth. We know that that's the highest form of love, to give someone the fertile ground to be able to make adjustments and be who they are and grow from that.
Right.
What are you guys doing in that regard, you guys being the Empowered School of Ministry? What do you do as far as a class setting or to help that?
Right. So, I mean, we were very intentional about naming our school. And so when we were thinking about, who was, what was going to be our identity, what would we like to be known as? And so just through a lot of prayer and just thinking, we did land on that word, empower. And I was thinking about that because I'm thinking, what's an empowered life look like? And so we use that term, but, what's it mean to feel empowered? And it means to give someone authority or power to do something. And, when you feel empowered, that means that you feel confident about your future. You are excited. You have a vision for your future. You see something good in your future. And also you feel equipped and you feel ready to go do whatever that might be. And also you just feel like you're doing something meaningful, something that's important with your life. So I'm saying all that to answer your question, because I believe that there's a lot of people who do down deep inside feel that they were made for something significant, but they're just not really sure what that is or even how to get there. And so what we tried to get across in our program is that the highest blessing that we're able to enjoy in life, it's not only what we're able to receive, but what we're able to give. Jesus said in Acts 20, verse 35, said it's better to give than to receive. And so we had that thread all through our program, in our classes, in our interactions with the students, and we also asked them to serve. So it's not just in the classroom. We have our classes, yes, but we also give them out-of-class assignments to serve and to have some practical hands-on expressions of what they're learning in the classroom. And so through all of that, what we tried to impart to them is that really that's the higher blessing. That's the greater blessing that we have in life is that I'm able to give something as a result of what I received. And I'm not just going to live my life only to be on the receiving end. And so I think when we do that, that's when people can really find the joy of living. They can really find that's something that's meaningful, something that's rewarding, and I feel like I'm really going to fulfill my purpose, because my purpose is going to always center around serving others. So that's really the general message. That's the general feel of what we try to do, is to get people to think about how can I serve? Because again, we call this a school of ministry, which might be misleading to some.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I mean, is that? I mean, if I didn't want to be a minister, but I would love to. I mean, I think this kind of education could be so helpful for so many curriculum parts of people's lives.
Exactly, right. And because that word ministry, we use it in a broader sense. It's not just someone who just wants to be a vocational minister, be a pastor, be a missionary, be a preacher. Certainly, we can help people with that. But we see ministry as any area of life that God's called you to serve Him in. So if you're in business, if you're a nurse, if you're an airline pilot, if you're a stay-at-home mom, if you're a soccer coach, if you're a bus driver, whatever it is, and the list goes on and on. But whatever God's called you to do, and so when you realize whatever that is, if you do it unto Him, and you do it with your heart to honor Him and to worship Him and to obey what He's gifted you to do with your life, then that is your ministry. So it doesn't have to be in a pulpit. It doesn't have to be in a church. It's just that you see what you do as a a response to what God's called you to do. And so in that way, you're serving, because that word ministry just means serve. So it's just, serving God however he's called you to serve him. And so that's really the bigger picture. That's the broader sense of what we're trying to get people to understand, is that there's a calling for you to serve God somehow, some way. And so when you find that out, that's when you're going to really live an enriched, full life.
Well, isn't really what God wants us to do is really become who he intended us to be.
Absolutely.
And that's through relationships, obviously. The only way we can become, as we were talking about earlier, you can't isolate yourself and really go off and find yourself. A lot of people think so. It's an important ingredient. But I think one of the main ingredients is what you're saying, is helping other people find their journey. And then in due course, you'll find yours as well. When you're doing this, this curriculum, to me, I'm sitting here listening to you, and I'm finding this so amazing, because I did ethical courses. They take time to teach you all this ethical stuff, and those by I don't even think they're offered anymore in schools on business ethics and things. Maybe they are, but why don't they have more of this kind of education?
I don't know. I don't know how to answer that question. I'm not really part of that kind of decision-making process when education. And so I don't want to get off on a side thing, but yeah, I'm not overly enthusiastic about the public education system as it is. But I don't know how to answer that question. I think maybe, morals might be just something that people are sometimes, they agree that we need them, but we don't always agree on how to achieve them. And so I think that sometimes people just sort of figure it out for themselves. It's hard to have a standard that everyone's going to be happy with. And so I think maybe that's
so it
maybe
boils
part
down
of
to
it.
Money. How does your school maintain itself?
Well, obviously through tuition payments. That's the one thing. But but in order to make the school affordable, we have kept it what we thought was a very reasonable price. So we also rely on people to donate, and so our church has been very helpful for that. So they've helped to underwrite the cost to get this school started, and we're also in the process of starting a scholarship fund. And so we're looking for people to donate and to help us to create a fund that will make the school affordable, so that we're not really going to charge everybody what it actually cost us. Because again, we're not in it to make money. We're in it to offer people a program and a service that will change their lives and will also influence the future. But we do have to pay the bills, and we do have to take care of those things. And so so what we're trying to do is to just let folks know that we're out there, and if they feel that they like our cause and they like what we stand for, that they may want to consider either a one-time gift or a recurring gift that will supply this fund that we can scholarship people, and we could, maybe only charge, say, 50% of what it actually cost us, or something like that, just so we could make this program more accessible to people. And so it's not going to be a thing where people will say, I would like to come, but I can't afford it. Mm-hmm. And so we just want to make it very much affordable.
If people want to get a hold of you, what do they do?
Well, our website is empowernbca.com. So that would be the first place that I would point people. And so they're able to get, and we're on social media, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we have a YouTube channel. So we do work with all the social media outlets, and so we're out there, and so people can just do a search, Empower NBCA School of Ministry.
And what church are you connected with?
Yeah, it's New Brighton Christian Assembly, which is how we got the NBCA part of it.
Okay, where is that located?
It's we're in Beaver County, which is about 35 miles or so north of the Pittsburgh area.
And what is the website address?
Yeah, it's Empower NBCA. So that's EMPOWERNBCA.com.
Okay, great. One of the things that I am really excited to hear is that there are people out there who are looking at the world and saying, we need to make people aware of how special they are. I think a lot of times these younger people, and maybe perhaps they didn't grow up with a father or mother as I did, or people talking to you about how important you are and what you're supposed to try and do in this world to help other people. When you're doing this type of work, it has to give you such great feeling. I mean, I can't imagine I'm sure you go home every day and still have the dishes to do and everything. So I'm not going to pretend like that everyday life's not happening. But I'm going to take me back to 20 years of age, and you're in Newcastle, Pennsylvania, and you're a bodybuilder, Mr. Newcastle, right?
Well, that was a long time ago, but yes, yeah.
I'm glad he didn't rip off his shirt and start. If you had the T-shirt under there, I'd be really afraid. But when did you feel this calling?
Yeah, well, that's a good question, and it's nice to, from time to time, just reflect. We're not always where we want to be, but we're not where we used to be. So it's good to sometimes go back and to see how God's been faithful and how God's worked and moved in your life. But I was in college, and I just sensed that there was something more to life. Didn't know what that was. I mean, I was raised in the church, and so I was faithful to that, but I didn't really have what I would call a vibrant faith. And so just through bodybuilding, I was going to the gym all the time, and I met these two guys. And I could just tell they had something about them. They were different. And I liked what was on them. I didn't know what it was. They just had this special quality. They had something special. And so we just started to hang out all the time with these two guys. And they always had their Bibles with them all the time. And so I just got to be more interested in the Bible. And so I started to read the Bible. And so from that, I just realized that I needed to make a true commitment to Christ. So this is all happening during my college years, and so I did that. And so after that...
let's back up for a minute. A true commitment to Christ. Tell me what that is.
Well, just realizing that I'm not able to do anything in my own power to save myself. And so, like I said, I was raised in the church, and I was what I think you would call a good kid. I didn't get into trouble, but I still realized that I was lost. And so outside of Christ, I had no hope. I had no way of being right in the eyes of God. And so I came to that point where I realized that I was lost. I was lost in my sin, that I was not going to be able to stand before God and have anything to say unless I had a savior. I had a mediator. I had someone else to plead my case. And so I put my faith in Christ and what he did on the cross. And so for me, I made peace with God. And so I put my trust not in what I could do, in me being good, or in all the nice things that I could possibly do, but the full weight of my trust was on Christ and what he did for me. And so I had what you would call a life-changing experience. And so I did. I just truly became a different person. And so I just became very, very hungry for God, and I began to read the Bible and to just go after God with a real passion and a real intensity. And so I just learned very early on that I just had a real desire to get involved in the things of the church. And so I guess maybe that's just because that's what my purpose and my calling is. And so I just got more involved and just served in any way that I could. And then I met the woman who I would marry eventually, and then her parents pastored a church. And so we helped out there for a lot of years, and I did pretty much anything, everything, you name it, we did it, we served, we helped. And so we did it because we loved it. And so I just began to realize that I was called to be in ministry and to serve. And again, when I mean ministry in in that sense of the word, being a minister. And so for me, that was how that started. I just knew that there was nothing else that I could ever do that would really satisfy me, that would really make me content. Now, I did work for years in the corporate world, and I did that, and I traveled on the weekends and would go to other churches and speak. And so I did that for years, where I worked a job during the week, and I did ministry on the weekends. But then at some point, I was able to step away from secular work, and now I give my time completely to ministerial work.
That's great. That's fantastic. So you're a young guy, you're a bodybuilder, you're on the exterior, you're this picture of total health, and inside you're feeling not so strong. And was it a mentor? Was it a person, or what allowed you to start feeling those whispers, those feelings about where God wants your dream to go, where your journey was supposed to go, to become who you're meant to be and who you are today, and where you're going? Obviously, it's exciting what you're doing, but take us back there again and say, where are we at that point? You know, your exterior again is, you're a chiseled man, Mr. Newcastle. There's just a lot of big Italian guys out there. I know. I used to go to the Lees and the Dukes. I'd seen some of those guys. What was it that allowed you to start listening to your internal whispers from God?
Right, and so as I look back on it, and like I had already alluded earlier, I met two guys at the gym, and they had a special something that I knew I didn't have. And I don't know what to call it. I didn't know what to define it as. I just knew that they had something that I didn't have. And so what I came to find out later was that they had a personal knowledge of God, that they knew God in a way that I did not. And so they had a peace. They had a confidence.
So you actually saw this aura about them.
Right. Yeah. They had this quality about how they lived their lives. And so they were good friends to me, and so we ended up being really good buddies. I was in their weddings, and they were in my wedding.
Wow, that's great.
And so, so I'd say, yeah, that was the main thing. Just getting to know these two individuals, and so they helped me answer some questions about my life, and they helped me just to develop a love for God's word, and just to begin to sense and to see what God might have in my future. So I would say that those two individuals, Ralph and Tim, they were very, very important at that time in my life to help me get on the right path, and to just understand that God did have a plan and a purpose for my life. And so, while I always liked sports, that was how I even got into bodybuilding, was because I played baseball, I played football, I played racquetball. I would spend all my time at the YMCA just working out, because that's just what I enjoyed doing. And so, that was fun, but I knew that there was something beyond that. There was something more than just building muscle. There was something more than just, feeling healthy and sports achievement. I knew that there was something greater. And so I just came to realize that I wanted to be part of something bigger than myself. And so I started to see things from more of a eternal perspective, that at the end of my life, will I be happy because I have 18-inch biceps, or will I be more happy because I did something else that was much more meaningful, much more impactful, that went beyond just my life?
Are those two gentlemen in ministry?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
That's interesting. They weren't then, though, right?
No, they were. Yeah, they were actually going to Bible school, and then through just a series of events, they both transferred, and so they ended up going to some other schools. And so, yeah, it's just amazing when you look back and you see how God orchestrates things and circumstances and people in your life. And so, we have kind of lost touch now. We don't talk a whole lot anymore, but back at that time, I can see how God really used them to touch
to bring you into
my
the fold.
life. Right.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. How much time are we looking at, Jim? What are we looking at on time? 38. Okay, so we want to try and keep this around 45 minutes. So I know we're rolling, but don't worry, we'll edit this. Sure. Is there anything else that I didn't touch on today in this last 5 to 8 minutes that we have that you want to do?
I guess maybe we could talk maybe like a little bit more about the courses that we teach in the program.
Sure. So tell me a little bit about the courses and the type of curriculum that you do offer there at the school.
Right. So we offer a 2-year program. And so the first year program, I see it as being more foundational, where we help people, like I said earlier, discern what that call is in their life and to just build spiritual disciplines like prayer and listening to God's voice and Bible study and things like that. So we teach classes on prayer, classes on faith. We teach, actually, we even do a course on personal finance to help people secure that part of their life so that money's not going to be a barrier to them being able to follow God. So they're able to keep that part of their life in order so that they're able to move forward in what they see.
You should let me
God's
know. I'll
plan.
come down and help out with that.
Great. Awesome.
I used to be an adjunct
to.
professor at St. Vincent's College. I taught finance and accounting type of stuff.
Excellent.
Thought it was great. Yeah.
I'll take you up on that. Yeah.
All right. You should do that, John, please. When you start your school, is it, this first 6 months is this, or is it kind of like learning karate? You just keep earning belts and then pretty soon you graduate.
I like that, how you put that. Yeah, it is designed to build on each other. So we have 4 10-week terms. So we go pretty much year round. So 40 weeks out of each year. So there's a commitment. And so we have a Sunday night program. So we just meet 1 night per week, Sundays from 6 till 9. We have 3 1-hour classes. And so, but each term is built to grow and to progress down a certain track. So, like I said, the first term, we get more into talking about your calling, your purpose, and hearing from God, and to manage the part of your life with finances. And then later on in the year, then we get into talking about the Old Testament, talking about the New Testament, just give people a brief overview of those kinds of things. And we also talk about how to interpret the Bible, because reading the Bible and to interpret or to extract meaning from what you're reading takes a little bit more effort. And so we talk about some of those things. And then in the second year, we go on the premise that during the first year that you've grown more comfortable with what your calling is, and now you might want to sort of specialize in a certain area, where maybe you do sense that you want to work with children, or that you might want to open your own business, or you might want to get into music, or you might want to go on the mission field.
So that follows you through. So I do a 2-year program. What do I graduate with?
Yeah, so then you would get a 2-year degree in ministry. So our church is part of a network of churches called the IFCA, which is the International Fellowship of Christian Assemblies. And so we partner with them, and so through that partnership, we're able to offer a 2-year degree in ministry from the IFCA Bible College. So we use part of their courses, and we do many that we did on our own. And so through that partnership, we have, I guess, there would be 12 courses each year, so 24 courses total.
Is there any age bracket?
No, and which is I think an awesome part of it too. It's for all ages and all stages, as I like to call it. So it doesn't matter if you're right out of high school, or if you're someone who's much further down that road. We have people who were in our school who were 18, people in our school who were in their 20s, in their 30s, some even in their 50s and 60s. There's people who have maybe are more seasoned in life, and they've come to a point where, you know what, I feel like I want to make a change, or I want to learn more, or I have more time now because my kids are grown, so I want to just go back to school and learn some things. So it's for anybody, not only people who are right out of high school just looking to make a path in a career.
So you meet one night a week, Sunday nights. Correct. And so during the week, do they have take-home study stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So we asked them to expect to have an hour or two of study outside of the classroom for every hour that we spend in the classroom. So obviously that'll vary based on the students. Some people are better students than others. Some people read faster than others, whatever. But so we say, if you're going to be in class 3 hours per week, then you should probably allow 3 to 6 hours during your week of outside time for study, for reading, for writing, for prayer, and for various assignments.
Do you have a mentorship after you graduate? Do these guys are they still remaining on staff to some degree where they, are around for the students that might need them? In the certain disciplines they may elected to go on, like music or finance or those type of things.
Right. Yeah, so our second year program shifts from being more foundational to then being what you just mentioned, being more of a mentorship. So during the second year, based on your selection of the area that you would like to specialize in, then we do match you up with a mentor, or maybe even more than one mentor, which that you would spend time with them during the week, maybe with worship or with missions or with youth ministry. And so we do see that becoming something that even after that second year program is finished, that those things can continue, that you could still find time to meet with your mentor and to learn from them. And so our ultimate goal is to see that everyone, it doesn't matter what stage of life that you're in, we do encourage them to always have someone that you're mentoring, and always have someone that's mentoring you. So you should always have a Paul in your life, someone who's more of a spiritual father, someone who's speaking into your life. And you should always have a Timothy in your life, someone who's maybe a little younger than you, maybe not only age-wise, but just younger in the things of God, that you're able to speak into their life and to help groom them.
I can't tell you how wonderful it is. I have a gentleman named Ricky McKinney. He's the CEO of the Blind Boys of Alabama, and he's one of those mentors to me. He's a fantastic guy, not only on a professional basis, but also on a spiritual basis. And very neat discipline for me to have that in my life. Very, very blessed. What do you do to reach out to the community? I know I'm going to kind of round this out, but I think we should close with this question. There's so many people in your community that have lived life, have so much to offer. They didn't go through your class, but what do you do as that outreach to bring those people to use their I don't want to use the word use, but to allow their expertise to come in and really change another person's life inside the school?
Yeah, good. We do schedule guest speakers every so often, and we do bring people in to speak into our students. And so they may come maybe just for one session, they may come for multiple sessions. We have people, like we had said earlier, who maybe have a background in finances, or maybe they have a background in business, or they have a background in some other kind of a leadership role. And so they will come, and so they will speak to our classes on leadership, on servant leadership. We have people come and talk about marriage and family, talk about prayer, talk about just some general practical things of life. So yeah, we do like to bring people in from our church family, but also people from the area, just pastor friends and other business leaders and just other proven executives who have a heart to mentor and to pass on their knowledge to other people.
I just think that's great, because so many times I've been sitting in audiences and I'm listening to someone speak, and I thought, wow, that guy it's talking about exactly some of the things I've been thinking about deep down inside. So I think that's fantastic. One last question, and we'll call it a day here. So in your curriculum, as you're going through school, are you having people in year one, beginning, and then maybe they're in year two and there's a new class? Are they all mixed together, or are they segregated classes?
Right. Well, I mean, us being a newer school, we haven't really reached that point yet.
Okay.
But we do envision being in that place where we do have a first year and a second year running concurrently.
Okay.
And so, what that would look like, I think it would be a mix of what you said. Is that I think that the first year and second year they would have their own separate classes, but at some point we would bring them under the same roof, maybe for a chapel service, or maybe for a outreach, or maybe for one class here and there, where they're able to mix and to help each other out. So it wouldn't just be one pure thing where they're all by themselves all the time, or a mix all the time. It would probably be a
blend,
a little bit of both. Right? Yeah.
And I want to thank you so much for your suggestion of the baptism on the waterfall out of my ranch. So
Good.
I hope one day, in the very, very near future, you are doing a service out there in the God's blessed wooded area there.
I would love that.
Off the man. Me too. We're going to call it a day here. This is John Merola, an ordained minister, director of Empower School of Ministry in New Brighton, Pennsylvania. One more time, John, the website and perhaps a phone number where people can get a hold of you.
Sure. Yeah, our site is www.empowernbca.com, and our number is 724-846-8820.
Thank you. And thank you, John.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm. What did I hear you say? That you're